Alright, the first team protection mechanic I want to look at today is the redirect mechanic. This one's a very strong mechanic because it allows all the attacks minus AoEs to go towards this unit. Usually it's on units with pretty high defensive capabilities. For example, you can use it on the new LR TEQ Frieza, who gets a temporary 400% defensive boost once you activate his active skill for the redirect. You also have the LR STRB's Gohan, who gets 158% defense on the redirect. You also have LR TEQ Super Gogeta, who gets 300% defense on the redirect as well. So there's a lot of units who gain benefits from redirect. There's also units like Gogeta who gets guaranteed dodge on that turn. Regardless, the point is that these attacks get moved over to this unit so they could take the blows for you, and usually they get some kind of benefit. Like for example, Frieza gets 150% attack per attack he gets in the turn, so he can hit really hard by the time it's the end of the turn because he's taking so many hits. Or Gogeta's building up his crit, and etc. But the reason why it's so good is because really there's not a lot of restrictions on this. Usually these units have it on a base unit. It's not like, I mean, Gogeta will you to transform into it, but like Golden Frieza, that's a turn 1 redirect. Beast Gohan is a turn 3 redirect, right? So they're pretty quick to get out and they're very useful to use in certain scenarios. Again, the Golden Frieza one's very useful. For example, the AGL Gogeta, the base form Gogeta that we do not like, has you know, the flaw of being weak turn 1, but if you're able to float him and then hide him behind a Golden Frieza redirect, you're able to keep him alive and get to the more important and valuable phases of the Angel Goku and the AGL Spirit Gogeta a lot easier because you're protecting him with the redirect. So redirect is very strong. It allows to keep your team alive. Of course, it does not stop AoEs. There's always weakness to things, and of course you can't capitalize really well on redirect abilities. If, for example, you get stunned or you get sealed, right, you can also lose benefits there. But the redirect is a very strong mechanic, though, just the fact that you can gain a ton of defensive ability off of it. Alright, next we have the Ghost Usher ability, and I'm not talking about the item, I just call it the Ghost Usher ability because essentially it's what the Ghost Usher does. And what it does in like units like 17 and 18 and Int Hit and Int Boot all have it, where you can essentially you just hit the opponent with an active skill, which all of them have, and it delays their attack for an entire turn, all their attacks. And there's no mechanic so far in this game that allows you to nullify Ghost Usher effects. Now, again, stun is something, it's basically stunning the opponent, but again, stuns can be nullified, right? As we saw, like bosses, you can be nullified to stun, but Ghost Usher is a stun that cannot be nullified, which is why Ghost Ushers are very valuable. Now, stun is very powerful if you can use it. Again, for example, Tao in Extreme Super Battle Road has an ability where he stuns all enemies on the first turn. That is very strong, but Ghost Usher is very strong in harder fights because, you know, stun's usually blocked out by then, and Ghost Usher is generally something you can only use one time only, hence why they're only on active skill abilities. So it makes sense that Ghost Usher is not blocked out yet, since you're really only using it once per fight anyways, unless you're running a bunch of people with Ghost Ushers, then it's a little different. But I do think that the Ghost Usher ability is very strong. You get a free turn, you can do whatever you want with it, and then you move on, right? Then you move on, you can continue on finding out what you need to do. But delaying a boss's attacks for one turn is just very strong, which is why I had to put it on this list as one of the strongest team protecting mechanics in the game. All right, the next mechanic we have is the Revive mechanic. I think my biggest issue, well, not really issue with it, is just more so the fact that it's inconsistent of what a revive looks like in this game. Sometimes it's all three, sometimes it's just one, right? It just depends. It could be on a standby, it could not, but it's not really that big of a deal, right? Most of the time it's just 1 or 3. Now, there are some units that have certain revive conditions, like you have to be under a certain HP threshold, or you could just have a 50% chance of reviving in general. Hercule. So, you know, there's a lot of variations of how revives can work, but the nature of a normal revive is anytime you die, whole rotation can die, and then you revive, right? That unit does that. Not every unit does that. As I said, it's just the normal nature of what revive is. So, you know, revive has its perks, right? It's not just that unit dies. Any unit can die in that rotation, and then you're fine, which is a very strong mechanic, because you don't ever, like, unless you have, which one of them will be later, is if you know where the enemy's supering at, sure, I get it. But if you don't, and you're just like, oh, I'm gonna try this, oh, I'm gonna try that, I don't really know, I'm at the end of the run, right? Having a revive almost guarantees wins, especially because if you're gonna die, you're probably most likely going to your other rotation, which is a pretty strong rotation. Maybe not, I don't know. But more so the point is having a revive unit is very strong. Having that just extra layer of protection to keep your run going is always worth it, especially because again, you don't get continues in any of these newer or harder stages. So of course, no continues and allowing you to basically get a quote-unquote free continue is nice to have when things may not go your way, or you may get a horrible orb board, or maybe you just got an unlucky super, or you had a rough turn and you didn't get the amount of super attacks that you needed, right? Having a revive animation, or not even animation, just having a revive in general allows you to keep yourself in the game. All right, next we have just defensive support. And I know it's weird to just say defensive support, that's a team protective mechanic. Hear me out. I'm not talking about like 50% defense or 60%. I'm talking like Gogeta level defense, like 230% defense and stuff like that for that turn, right? But more so, this spot is actually talking about damage reduction support. I feel like this is something we have to talk about as a team protecting mechanic because, for example, if GT Goku is on your rotation and you have a whole Giant 8 power team, he's giving damage reduction to these guys, it's keeping them alive. The extra defense is extra support, like those things are keeping these guys alive. Maybe it isn't like a fail-safe, like a redirect or a ghost usher or a revive, and this might be a stretch. Again, this is not in order at all, by the way. Like, there's no ranking. It's not like this one's better than this one's better than the other, but it's just more so I'm talking about why I think damage reduction support has to be considered here as some kind of team protective mechanic, because the extra 10% damage reduction these guys are getting are allowing them to stay alive to attacks maybe they normally wouldn't have. Or for example, like Trio and like the Fizz Trio and then this TEQ Gogeta, what they're doing is insane levels of defense to allow some units who definitely would have died to attacks to be able to handle some of these crazier bosses because of the new level of defense that these guys are giving them, right? There's so much defensive support in this game right now. Like, you could stack layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of defensive support on these guys, allowing them to revive guys. Like, imagine a team, right? And I know Fizz Trio is not runnable right now, but let's just say you ran Fizz Trio and then also poured on TEQ Gogeta's 230% support, and then also had the Super Gogeta turn with its active skill, right? Like, there's so many support units we have right now that you could almost get like 400 to 500% defensive levels on units and allow them to be runnable. Like, it's crazy how many units we have in this current meta and can just support and support and support, and eventually all that defense leads up to a point where you're supporting your rotation so much that they can't die because they have a ridiculous amount of defense and ridiculous amount of damage reduction support and stuff like that allows it just to be something worth mentioning. Again, maybe this is a little lower on my ranking, but I do think this is one worth mentioning. All right, the next one's debuffing. I think debuffing has to be included because we can see what the Omega team looks like with it and without it. I know Omega's team can hold its own to a certain extent even without debuffing. I'm not saying that, but the team looks so much better when you can debuff, because Omega can get caught in certain scenarios. Texan can get caught in certain scenarios. Shadow Dragons can get caught in certain scenarios. S tier Omega for certain can get caught in certain scenarios. So these guys who are in, like maybe you just didn't get the defense going, maybe you didn't get both Omegas up, right? And then Rose supering one of these guys and they die, right? But being able to debuff and being able to constantly lower stats allows you to stay ahead of the game. And having all of these guys just to debuff and debuff and debuff and debuff and debuff just makes it so where the opponent can't even do damage to anybody on your team, because you're constantly nuking their attack, you're constantly nuking their attack, and you're constantly nuking their attack, right? Again, Rose, for example, in that Rose fight, yes, Rose can kill Omega, but at the same time, the STR Omega keeps showing up, and you keep supering with Fizz Omega against that Rose, and you're constantly beating down his attack with just constant debuffs and debuffs and debuffs to where Rose doesn't even do damage to you anymore, right? Same thing with those blue zone fights, which is the reason why Omega seems so strong in them, is because he can debuff them and also just do crap ton of damage, which helps too. But I mean, just the debuffs that you can get off on this team just allows them to be so strong. And that's why debuffing is normally not allowed, because debuffing is very strong. If you can debuff like crazy, the boss is useless, and then you protected your team from dying. So debuffing, I do think, deserves to be on this list due to the nature of it just completely making a boss obsolete, because they can't even do damage to you because you debuffed them so much. So I definitely think it deserves to be on this list. All right, next we're going to talk about Scouter. I mean, Scouter is plain and simple. This one is, in my opinion, I think a little lower on the totem pole, but it is a team protecting mechanic because you know where the super's at. Now, if they walk and stuff like that, it's a little different, because like having a Scouter up and then you're being walked doesn't help you too much, because you're just going to see that you're dead. Like, well, we lost, guys. That's it. I mean, I see where it's at, but I can't do anything about it, right? But I do think that Scouter definitely deserves to be on this list, because knowing where the super attacks are allows you to game plan so much better. That's why all the fusions have it. It's a very strong mechanic when you know, because the hardest thing in this game, outside of, you know, actually beating the bosses maybe or something of the sort, is the RNG or hopefulness of knowing where these super attacks are at. Is it slot 1? Is it slot 2? Is it slot 3, right? I don't know. Okay, my guy, should we go in this slot? Should we go in this slot? Yes, we have a lot more scripted fights now, so it's a lot easier to know where super attacks are. But the thing is when you know where the supers are, it makes a fight 10 times easier. I'll even show an example of this, and if I forget, I'm sorry, but there's a video of Slavix talking about, and it's gonna be hard to find because it's in the collab video, in the 5-way collab video. Basically, Slavix talking about to them like, oh my gosh, this fight is so much easier when the truth told me that this fight is scripted, because the nature of knowing where the super attacks are allows you to game plan so much better than just, oh my gosh, he's super here, I died, right? Rather, I know you're gonna super here. I have planted these guys perfectly in these spots to know that, okay, they're meant to tank this. Now they die, oh well, but at least I knew I put my best unit towards it. That's why the Scouter is so strong, because the ability to know where they are allows you to adjust your game plan to have a more efficient and effective rotation, to know, okay, I know he's super in here, I need my strongest unit here, and I will set my rotation as such in order to increase my survivability. All right, next we're talking about ridiculous levels of damage. This is crazy to say, it really is, but we have to talk about this. This is not the first time. And you can ask people who have been on this channel for a year and a half, or I guess it's been almost 2 years now, right? Who've seen my content for the past 2 years. I am not a damage guy. I'm not. I do not care for damage. Like, oh, he hits hard. Okay, who cares, right? But there's a certain point where units hit so hard that it becomes its own team protecting mechanic. People have to understand that. And I know it's hard to get a grasp of, but in the meta we are currently in, it matters. And we had this exact same thing happen last year. If you remember the Go Frieza meta, right? The thing was, yes, all the other bosses, they were decent. They were tough. But the hardest boss in the game was Go Frieza, right? Hardest boss, hardest hitting boss, always for slot 1, right? It was a tough boss. But you could one-shot him with the family Kamehameha if you got enough orbs, which made Gohan the strongest unit in the game. Not because Gohan was tanky, not because Gohan did impressive things, it's because he had one gimmick. Gohan's one gimmick was having a super strong attack. That was his only gimmick. That's all he did. But what made it so good, though, was the fact that if you did it properly and it didn't require that much work, you could one-shot the boss. And he was pretty tanky, too, in that form. But the ability to one-shot a boss is a very important mechanic, because if you kill the boss before he can even attack you, that's a pretty strong mechanic. That's stronger than dodge, redirect, ghost usher, revive, all of that, because if they can't hit you, you win, right? That's why ghost ushers are, so strong, because, oh, they don't get to attack you that turn, right? But just killing the boss, that's very impressive. And there's a reason why, again, there's a reason why I have G4 as my number 1. I know a lot of people won't agree with that. That's fine. I have him as number 1 because his damage is so ridiculous, right? His damage is so ridiculous that he can kill the bosses before they kill you. And in the meta we are in right now, in all of the Blue Zone fights, and all of the special battle fights, right? What is it? If you hit Gohan X amount of times, he will get to 21 mil, right? Oh, if you hit if you last too long against Special Battle, or sorry, Blue Zone, Gohan and Goten and Trunks, Gohan's gonna start doing 12 mil crits. Or yeah, and then or you have Rose and Zamasu. If you keep hitting Rose, he's gonna get up to his 24 mil super. Oh, there is the Gogeta by turn 4. He's still only got 10 mil supers. Oh, every boss has a certain threshold of turns or hits where they become ridiculous. It's every boss in the game currently, and that's why. And the same thing with Go Frieza, right? If you got him under 50% HP, he doubled his damage, right? That's like, when we consider those facts, high amounts of damage is what you're looking for, so you can avoid the scenarios of when Go Frieza gets under 50% HP, when Rose Masu is fully built up, when Gohan's fully built up, when Goten and Trunks and all of them are all fully built up, right? Because you're killing them too quickly. That's also what Omega has too, sure, but Omega has to at the same time get himself set up to tank. Gogeta's defense doesn't change from turn 1 to turn 3 to turn 5, which is a good and bad thing per se, but then you have the Dragon Fist on the 3rd turn that allows you to hit really strong. My point is, out of all of that rambling and yapping, Omega has a really strong mechanic in debuffing. Gogeta has a really strong mechanic in high level damage. That's the reason why I have Gogeta at 1, and you could argue Omega over the Blues for me. I would probably, I don't know. And here's the reason why I say that. That's because Omega actually has mechanics that protects his team. The Blues don't. They just don't get hit. Cool, but you're not helping your team. You're just not dying yourself, I suppose. But either way, I think ridiculous amounts of damage that Omega and Gogeta are doing, specifically Gogeta, are very important things to consider, because if you're killing the boss before they can even hit you, that's a very strong mechanic, right? Very strong. All right, next we have Giant Form / Rage Mode. This is always going to be on this list. It's basically like an Usher, right? But without like removing the normals. Essentially, what a Giant Form does is, one, you get a free turn of damage, right? Just from the Giant doing supers. The second thing is, you are something with Rage Mode, right? Rage Mode has the same thing. Second thing is the ability to remove all AoEs, remove super attacks, and all the other things that a boss can do in a turn. Essentially, if a boss would normally do it, it changes, right? The only things that don't get removed are seals, locks, and stuff like that. Like, it will change who it locks the next turn, but like the locks are, the locking still exists. Now, the good thing about the Giant Form as well is you can move around your rotation to set it exactly as you want to allow you to avoid locking anyways. And it's hard to know that because you, like, once the faces, like, cause you know, the Giant covers the faces of the units that you have. So you have to know your rotation before you activate Giant and then move around the guys you want in rotation. If you're in a locking scenario, you can use Giant Form for more things, but those are the basics, of course. Yeah, I mean, Giant Form's a very strong mechanic. There's a lot of gimmicky stuff you can do with it. You can get around lockings, and then of course you can hurt the, I mean, you could stop the opponent from doing supers that turn, no AoEs. You delete a lot of things. Like, it's even stronger than redirect because you're getting rid of the super, right? And the AoEs are gone. And I think getting rid of AoEs is such an important thing in this, like, current meta we're in. And we'll eventually see Orange Piccolo's EZA sometime in the near future, which you will remember and see why Giant Form is so strong, especially against the, you know, the Rose and Zamasu fight, right? When you get to turn 3 and you can go to Orange Piccolo and Rose Masu, maybe they're both alive, or maybe just a Rose is alive, and you can pop the Giant Form and you get rid of his AoEs. It's just another layer of protecting your team from dying, especially for units who need to super in order to be strong. Again, right now, if you need to do that, you're not a top 10 unit because you need to be strong right away. But quite frankly, again, that would help in protecting those kind of units. All right, the final one is one we have not seen very often or at all, because the most important thing we have to consider is Tapion's active. Remove negative effects. Now, more so what I mean by this is the most important thing we have to see, it's just more so the fact that it's a strong mechanic we never get to see, because removing negative effects is really good against bosses, like, for example, against Zamasu, who locks your opponents, or Omega, who locks your, locks your guys, right? So you don't, like, to get around that stuff is pretty strong. Like, locking is a very powerful boss mechanic, so for you to counter it using Tapion's active is pretty nice. Tapion is the only guy as an active skill passes, by the way. I mean, Super Gogeta has it himself, but Tapion's the only guy that can actually, you know, use his active skill, and it affects the whole rotation and it removes that stuff. Like, for example, Vegito, it would benefit from that kind of, except that, you know, his redirect, if he gets hit by a stun or a seal, Tapion can't do anything about that. More so, the good thing is that it prevents seals or locking that happens before the rotation starts. And again, locking is prominent. It is a very strong mechanic we see right now. So I'm gonna have to include it. I mean, it's probably in the middle pack, maybe lower half of abilities that we consider team protecting. But, you know, if your floater gets locked into slot 1 and he's completely weak, I think it's a very important mechanic to have so that you can go ahead and just, you know, just remove that, can go on and play the way you want to without having your team be in danger because your unit who's supposed to be in slot 3 is in slot 1 locked and you're ready to die. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you guys agree or disagree with the units on this list? Or I guess more so the mechanics on this list, I should say. If you guys enjoyed the video, click a like, you know, comment down below. And if you guys want to check out more videos like this, my first link is to all of my Dokkan Battle content videos voiced, and then my second one is to all my Dokkan Battle content videos in general. Click the link, my G Fuel link in the description for 20% off your G Fuel order, and I'll see you guys in the next one.